everybody, and welcome to Wednesday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. John Schmeelk, Paul Dottino with you. 201-939-4513. Get in the line, give us a call, talk some Giants football with us. I'll check your emails at bigbluekickoff@gmail.com as well, or you can hit us up on Twitter. You know where we are at. Mr. Dottino, let's turn the page here.
Yeah.
Philadelphia Eagles coming up on Christmas Day, 4:25 kick. Brian Daboll just spoke to the media. Not a ton there. As the temperature goes down, the amount of time Brian Daboll spends talking outside has gone down as people want to get out of the cold.
Is that a coincidence, John?
No, I don't think it is, sir. Not really a lot of news there. The only big piece is that the significant piece, there's a couple smaller pieces we'll get to too. But Dexter Lawrence will not practice today. Still tending to that hamstring injury.
It's been 2 weeks, though, that he's been managed.
Yeah, I was about to say that. So you wonder if this is going to be something they manage the rest of the year, because he really played half the snaps the last 2 weeks. He's usually closer to the 75% range. Yep. And 2 weeks ago, he still played effectively. He was good. Last week, it was one of the quietest games I've seen him have in a couple of years.
Yeah, he was not very impactful.
And I wonder how much of that is the hamstring, is my point.
I think that's very fair. But, you know, if he's able to walk, he's going to be in the game.
And if he's out there, yeah, you know, you're going to judge him like you would any other player.
Yeah. Now, to be frank, I thought that A'Shawn Robinson and Nacho made some interior defensive line plays against the run.
I think A'Shawn Robinson has been a really good investment this year. I think against the run all year, he's been very, very good.
Better recently, too, as they've given him more snaps.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think Nacho's been fine as well. But I think you feel it in the pass rush, right?
Well, you do. There's no question.
That's where you feel it the most.
Without a doubt. I mean, very few defensive linemen on the interior, especially with the size that Dexter has, are able to get you to close the front of the pocket. That's just a real rare commodity. Well, that's why he got re-signed.
Yeah, and that's why he's at the top of the defensive tackle market, too. Yeah. I mean, he earned that. Certainly defensive player of the year candidate for most of this year. Other small pieces of news from Brian Daboll's media availability. Randy Bullock. I have not heard Brian Daboll answer a question about an injury quite like that most of this year. He was asked very briefly, how's Bullock? Not good. Was it not great or not good? I'm trying to remember the exact. It was either not great or not good is what he said about Bullock's hamstring. So yeah. He's not kicking this week. That sure sounds like it's probably going to be a few weeks for him, just based on the tenor of his response. Brian Daboll didn't say that. I'm doing my Lance Meadow answer mood evaluation of what Brian Daboll said. And obviously, kicker, hamstring, kicking leg. That's something you can't come back from too soon.
No.
Luckily, they do have a kicker on the practice squad in Cade York, so he'll be elevated, and he'll be the guy that's up this week for the Giants.
Yeah, and they also activated the practice window for Matthew Pert and for Gary Brightwell today.
Yes.
So we will see how long it takes for those guys to get in games. Remember, you get the 21-day window. The problem is there's only 3 weeks to go. So, I'm not sure exactly what the primary purpose is. Are they going to try to get them into a game 2 or 3? Or do they just want to see these guys be able to get back to practicing with the team for camaraderie's sake and to be together with the rest of the roster? Daboll did not explain what the schedule planned is for those two guys. But nonetheless, it'll be good to get them back out on the field.
Yeah, no question about it, and we'll see what kind of role they do have when they return. Because Tyree Phillips has really done a nice job as the backup tackle, stepping in for Evan Neal.
It's been okay.
Evan Neal will practice again this week. We'll see how far along he is trying to get back from that ankle injury. I will say this, I'm not sure you want his first game back to be in Philadelphia against that Eagles pass rush, especially considering his history against Hassan Reddick, which has not been great. So I think maybe hold off a week. You don't have a noisy venue at home the following week against the Rams. They don't have the same level of edge rushers as the Eagles do. So I think, again, if he's ready, he's going to play. You would think. Brian Daboll did not commit to that last week. But I don't think, deep end of the pool, first game back in Philadelphia is probably the best move to put Evan Neal in a position to succeed.
The only caveat to that for me, John, would be that if he's healthy enough to go, and the trainers say they don't think he's at harm's way, he can make all the movements that he needs to make. Mm-hmm. I'd probably throw him into the deep end of the pool, to be frank.
Really? Why?
Well, a couple of reasons. One, I don't think it's fair to preach all season long that when guys are healthy enough to play, they play. And now because the team is out of it, or kind of out of it mathematically, you decide, oh, we're going to hold the guy back because A, the game maybe doesn't have as much importance, and B, because it's a tough opponent. I think that's kind of being a bit wishy-washy.
And and again, I think if he's ready to play, he will play. I
think you have to.
I just don't think it's a great situation to put the guy into.
I'm not telling you it's going to be fun. I didn't suggest that.
Right.
and it may not go well, but I think I think it's somewhat hypocritical that if he is prepared to go and the trainers say he's up, and then you don't play him, I think there's an inconsistency there.
No, I think that's fair. I don't disagree with that at all. Now for the Philadelphia Eagles, Paul, I want to make sure we have time to get to the calls here because we'll do our full preview the next couple of days. I just want to give fans kind of an overview of what we're looking at the Eagles, though, really quick before we get to your calls. I already see people calling in. People are on hold at 201-939-4513. This is a joke I made to O'Hara on the Giants Huddle podcast yesterday. You know, this is a good time to get the Eagles. They've lost 3 straight. They're not playing their best football. This is not a good time to get the Eagles. They've lost 3 straight, and they're going to play at home in front of a very
glad you did that.
In front of a very cranky home crowd, and they're going to be motivated to win the game. So I kind of look at this in 2 different ways.
I could not agree with you more. I would not be surprised if not only they fire snowballs at Santa, but they probably also want to mug the Grinch.
I also said on the show, if you're planning on going to the game on Christmas Day, I would highly advise you not wearing a Santa outfit.
Or any blue, red, or white, for that matter.
Yes, that's called going incognito.
Yes,
would probably be the better way
you want to
go.
be stealth.
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Look, I will say this.
Though most of the Eagles fans I hear might be actually focused on their own team, knowing Philadelphia fans rather than the opponent.
You know what's really odd for me, John? And I haven't done, obviously I've seen the Eagles as you have over the course of the year because they've been on TV a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So we've all seen them. But the truth is, even though I've been rather unimpressed with their back 7 on defense, I really didn't realize, statistically speaking, how many bruises they really have. I mean, they've given up 30 touchdown passes, which is the second most in the NFL.
Defensively, they are a legitimately not good football team this year. Offensively, the numbers are still better than fine. Really not as good.
Yeah.
But there's a reason they changed their defensive play caller. It was a freaking mess.
Defensively speaking, when you just go by the numbers, but by the eye test, I could tell they weren't the same team. Mm-hmm. But then I was like, I'm starting to dig in this week, and I'm like, wait a minute. This is a very mediocre defensive football team.
Mediocre is putting it nicely, to be quite honest with you.
Okay, but they still have the threat of that defensive line, which has always been the crux of where they built their unit.
Yeah, and I'll put it this way. I think this year for the Eagles, it shows you how pass rush and sack numbers specifically, from year to year can vary a lot because of circumstance, right? Mm-hmm. Because there's no doubt they still have a really good pass rush in terms of personnel. They lost Devon Hargrave, sure, but they bring in Jalen Carter, and his numbers, you compare him to Hargrave this year, they're almost identical.
He's going to be on the all-rookie team.
So you really didn't lose much there, right? Josh Sweat's back. He's still really good. Hassan Reddick's back. He's still really good.
Yes, he is.
Fletcher Cox is there. Brandon Graham is there. Hassan Reddick is there. They're all still there, all right?
That line it's a tough room,
John.
They're
all still there, but here's the problem with it, all right? And their pressure rate, by the way, is almost identical. It's just off by 1%. Mm-hmm. Yet last year they finished with 70 sacks. 70. Right now, they only have 39 with 3 games to play. Yet their pressure rate is the same. So then you ask the question, why? Well, I think there's a couple different reasons for it. One, much like the Giants, the Eagles' schedule is tougher this year. You're playing a better branded team with better quarterbacks. So they're going to get the ball out a little bit quicker.
Yep.
It's going to be harder to get home,
with
number
that.
one. Number two, and I think this goes to your original point talking about their defense, Paul. The pass rush has to work in tandem with the secondary. Mm-hmm. If you're playing a lot of zone, which the Eagles do, and you're allowing a lot of easy completions, which the Eagles do, guess what? The quarterback's going to get the ball out. They don't have to hold it. So that ball's getting out faster, and even though the pass rush is winning and they're getting pressure, the quarterback's not holding the ball to take sacks. Mm-hmm. So to me, and number three, I'll throw this out there too, they have not played with big leads as much as they did last year either. They've played in even the games that they've won, they've played in much closer games. So they haven't had these big leads where other teams have to, open it up, pass every down, and then all of a sudden the floodgates open. You let loose the dogs of war and you sack like crazy, right? Because the other team's not running the ball anymore. So to me, those are the three things that are the reason why maybe that pass rush doesn't seem as fierce from a statistical standpoint, even though the talent, to your point, is still there.
I'll give you 4 and 5.
Sure, go ahead. What do you got?
The back seven, especially the secondary, is older. Those two corners,
sure.
Slay and Bradbury, have some wear on their tires.
And I think I know where you're going for the second one now, too. And Slay did not play last week, by the way. We'll see what his injury status is
and
this
that's
week.
The thing. They've also had injuries in the back seven as well. And so they're not getting the consistent high-performance play out of that back seven anymore.
Right.
And
I agree.
I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, John. Again, we've seen a lot of the Eagles here in the New York market on television this year. I mean, I'm shaking my head sometimes at Slay and Bradbury. I'm like, okay, they are just not the same players they used to be. They're just not.
Yeah, and I do wonder, too, they changed defensive coordinators, and I think that's another part of this, too. And by the way, in the offseason, lost both their starting inside linebackers and both their starting safeties.
Yeah.
And the middle of the defense has been a huge problem for them, and I think that's a big reason why. Shockingly, you have less talented players. You're not going to play as well in those spots, so I think that's part of it. And then I think even with the offense, which has taken a step back in the last couple of weeks, I think this is what happens when you get the brain drain, the talent drain, right? When other teams come poach your staff and they take your defensive coordinator and they take Shane Steichen away from you, who has proven in Indianapolis to be one of the best offense. The fact that he's getting what he's getting out of that Colts offense with what's going on up there, I think it shows you how good of an offensive coach he is, and then showing the impact that it's had on the Eagles' offense losing him, even though some of the peripheral numbers are still actually pretty good. I think that's another part of the equation, too, why the Eagles aren't the same as last year, because they lost their two coordinators. And look, it's easy to say, just bring the next guy up and that's fine. It doesn't work that way. Some of these guys are very unique talents, and what they bring is very hard to replace.
Last year, when we looked at the NFC and we figured that San Francisco and Philly were the two best teams in the conference, and then the Niners got hurt at the end, and then in the playoffs, without the quarterback situation squared away, they got whipped in Philadelphia, and that was the end of it.
Which is a game you can't even really take seriously.
You can't.
Which is, by the way, why the 49ers are so pissy, for lack of a better term, heading into that regular season game this year. But he's like, the Eagles talked a little, I think they probably talked a little trash.
You know what they
game.
say about payback, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
correct.
Exactly.
Yes.
So the Eagles believe that was their year, and they didn't get it for various reasons, circumstances, of course. So now this year is their year, and they're going to buckle down double time to make sure they get their title this year. It's hard at the moment to think that anyone's going to stop the Niner freight train to the Super Bowl.
They almost like they have to stop themselves somehow.
Right.
Because the way they are by far the best team in the NFC.
I don't think there's any doubt.
I don't see how you could say otherwise, given how it's gone.
So to Brian Daboll's point, when he was asked about their 3-game losing streak in Philly, he goes, they're still 10-4. They're a pretty good football team. And they are. But
And they've lost a couple very good teams in San Francisco and Dallas. And Seattle could be a playoff team too. So
this is another one of those examples, though, about when I disagree with Parcells about you are what your record says you are. This is not the 10-4 Philadelphia Eagles of this level of last year.
No, it is not.
When they were that good.
I agree with that.
They're 10-4, but they're not the same team, John. They're
totally
much
agree.
less.
I totally agree. This is not the same team.
And so, Bill, I love you, man. I get it. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. But again, I'm going to disagree. That is one thing that you put out there. People still live by it. I don't agree with it. I will never agree with it. This is a prime example of you are not what your record says you are.
Of course, we said
this is a different Eagles team.
Of course, we said that about the Packers 2 weeks ago, and then they turned out to be more like what their actual record was. Hopefully the opposite doesn't happen with the Eagles this week, where they play to that 10-4 record.
So I will say this, though. Earlier in the year, and I can't remember exactly when you, John, Lance, Casillas, myself, we all had conversation right over the course of, maybe it was the late spring or maybe it was in the middle of the summer, where we talked about, wow, this Eagles roster looks like it's going to be built to contend for another couple of years. They're adding young talent. They've still got some good old veterans on the team. Well, we didn't You never can predict the injuries.
Yep.
And you never can predict how quickly a team will slide with age.
And by the way,
these two things have happened.
And I think, to your point, Jalen Hurts doesn't look right either. I think he's probably a little banged up in the lower body, too.
14 interceptions this year. He's in the top 5 throwing most interceptions. I think he's third in the league and tied for third most interceptions.
And look, as we saw with Dak Prescott, interceptions can vary from year to year a lot. That's just the way it goes.
The one thing that none of us could calculate, and I know Lance was really big on this, more than we were even, but you mentioned as well, what was the change in the coordinators going to do to this team?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
it was mentioned many times.
Yeah, I wasn't.
We didn't know.
I didn't think. I wasn't in love with the Eagles' defensive coordination last year, so I didn't think that was as big of a deal. But I thought losing Steichen was a huge deal, and I think both have turned out to be pretty big deals.
Turned out to be a much bigger impact, in addition to the other things we've mentioned, than maybe a lot of people might have expected. I mean, we kind of thought it could be a questionable area. We just didn't know that it would be such a negative. And it's turned out to be that way. So my question for you, John, as the Giants go into this game, we know the Giants have nothing to lose, obviously. I mean, I know mathematically they're hanging by a thread. I get that. But they're going down to play a team that has owned them for several years now in a very nasty environment, knowing the Eagles are going to be fired up as all hell. Do the Giants go in and just say, you know what? We're just going to be as ultra aggressive on both sides of the ball as we possibly can. Just throw mud against the wall and say, let's just play with total reckless abandon and see what happens. Do you do that?
Not if you don't think that gives you the best chance to win the game.
It might, though.
When you say throw caution, maybe I'm interpreting this the wrong way. When you say that, I think, all right, we're just going to chuck the ball down the field all game.
No, not chuck it down the field all game, but I'm talking about take many more deep shots than they've been willing to take in recent weeks.
Sure.
Take some shots.
As long as you can mitigate their pass pressure.
Well, that's
that
the
becomes
thing.
a problem.
There's no doubt.
And then Tommy DeVito starts getting killed. You throw interceptions, you fumble the ball, and then all of a sudden you're down 30-0. And
totally understand.
Another replay of what every game in Philly has seemed to be over the last 10 years.
Totally understand. The question becomes, though, if you go with the standard conventional, got to run it, got to be balanced approach, quite frankly, I don't know that the Giants have enough weapons and bullets in their gun right now.
I don't think
to match up with this team, especially given the circumstances.
I don't think Brian Daboll changes what his preparation, approach, and general method of trying to win the game changes based on what the Giants' standings are in terms of playoff picture or things like that. I
don't think playoff picture matters to him. I agree with you. I don't think that influences his decision. I'm just talking about you're going up against a team that is still 10-4, that we know they're going to be. Look, after losing 3 in a row, if they're not angry as all hell, something's wrong.
Oh, and they're going to be.
Especially in their building.
And Jalen Hurts challenged the team after the game. He said he didn't think enough guys were committed enough to winning.
So their mentality is going to be drop a 30 spot on the Giants, suffocate them, and basically batter them into submission as early as possible and then roll the rest of the game out there. That's what their mentality is going to be. That's how they're going to approach this game. So how do the Giants approach it? Do they approach it with we're gonna try to get into a slugfest early and try to take some of that sting out of them, or do you try to play your methodical, traditional, logical, trying to be balanced, trying to be with the run game, trying to make sure you play your angles correctly so that Hurts doesn't run out of the pocket? You know the kind of stuff I'm talking about.
I think they play their normal game.
You do?
I do.
Okay. And they might. I don't know the answer. I'm curious. To be frank with you, I haven't decided which way I would play it if I were Brian. I think there is a flip side to that coin about let's just go out there and just go nuts. It could be fun, but it could also be incredibly painful. But at the same time, we know how these games have turned out in Philadelphia for the last how many years?
201-939-4513, 201-939-4513. John Schmeelk, Paul Dottino with you right here on Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. All right, Go subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast, folks. We got some good episodes up there right now. My conversation with Sean O'Hara from Tuesday is the latest episode. We have a good conversation about the Saints game. We look ahead to Philadelphia, talk a lot about the offensive line, so go check that out. It's on the Giants app, or just go to your favorite podcast platform and search for Giants Huddle Podcast. And find our other podcasts as well, like Draft Season. I know the draft's coming fast now, guys. We have declarations for the Senior Bowl. We're getting our credentials all squared away. So make sure you go check out Draft Season and the Giants Hangout, our other podcast as well. Again, just search for them on your favorite podcast platform. And if you're an Apple Podcast, please leave a 5-star positive review for our podcast. If you like what you hear, it would really help
Solomon
us out.
Wilcots is up there, too.
Oh, and Solomon Wilcots, which I recorded this morning.
He's a good dude.
He's awesome. And Solomon and I did about 10 minutes on the Giants. We did about 10 minutes on the Eagles matchup, and then we did around 15 minutes going around the league. So that was a good spot this morning that we recorded. Pearson, good job getting that up so quickly. So make sure you go check that out again on the Giants Huddle podcast. All right, let's go to the phones right here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hugo is down in Philly, and Hugo's in New Jersey. He wants to talk about Philly. I apologize. Hugo, what's going on?
Well, I did want to make one comment about Sunday's game. I think Sunday's game ranks right up there with the Raider game as sort of my two most disappointing outings of the year, and for two reasons. One, because they're sort of middle of the pack teams, and two, because we were physically dominated. And as you guys know, what I perceive to be this team's lack of physicality has really been one of the most maddening things for me all year long. So just a brief comment on the game. Moving on to Philly. Philly is what I thought they would be. You may remember the conversation we had back in the summer, and I mentioned a few elements of what I expected from Philly. I noted the loss of talent at the linebacker and safety spot. By the way, you guys were a little bit dismissive of that. I don't remember who, but someone was. But I think I was the first to tell you that I thought their corners were already in decline. And as it turns out, James Bradbury is either committing penalties or getting burned down the field on a pretty consistent basis.
Yeah, but again, Hugo, I'll point this out again. Last year, there were plenty of times where he got burnt too, but the pass rush got home and teams weren't able to take advantage of it. So on the tape last year, and we talked about it in the games late last year, and it's just, again, I think part of that has to do with the way the defense has been coordinated too.
Okay, fair enough. Now, the other thing I mentioned is that they're an aging team, and the only service, I guess, the schedule makers did for the Giants this year is schedule them late in the year, because my thesis was that they would be in decline and more prone to injury later in the season. And what are you hearing out of Philly these days? Oh, it's a tired team. It's a tired team. And, they do have a few injuries on the back end. And I think the other element I mentioned is if everything isn't perfect, I don't think Jalen Hurts is a really good quarterback. And what's missing from their offense this year is that dominant run game.
Yes, that I agree with you, Hugo. I think that's the thing. The offensively for them, and I didn't want to get onto the offense because I thought we'd take too much time in the open before I got to the calls. Last year they were able to just line up and pound it 30 to 35 times a game, rush for 175 yards, and Hurts wouldn't have to do much. That has not been the case this year. Their run game is, whether that's Shane Steichen's absence, whether it's the offensive line not having Isaac Seumalo or getting a little bit older, or the change in running backs, whatever it is, the running game has not been as dominant as it was last year. I totally agree with you.
I would only say this. Swift has done a nice job. It's not the same running game, but he's done a solid job. They didn't lose a ton there.
I agree. I don't put it at the feet of DeAndre Swift. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, okay. That would be one of the lesser reasons for me, but I do agree that it would be a reason. I mean, I was very much thrilled when Miles Sanders left there, because I was like, okay, what are they going to do now? Running back by committee? And then they pick up Swift, who had been one of the committee guys in Detroit, and they decided to make him the feature guy here instead of going running back by committee. He's not Miles Sanders, but he's pretty good.
Kenny Gainwell's still getting some carries for them, though, too.
But Swift is still the lead guy.
Here, and that dovetails into kind of strategies for this game.
Yeah.
My expectation is that based on their success last year against the Giants and the fact that they don't want to commit turnovers because Hurts has been a turnover machine, so one way to ensure the victory in this game is they're going to try to go back to their old script and try to run it on the Giants.
That's what I would do. I mean, that's what I would do.
There's a better way. No, there's a better way. Just give it to Boston Scott 50 times.
Well,
he destroys this team.
Well. So here's the so the challenge for Wink is, I don't want to see any of those two down lineman lines. Do whatever is necessary to try to stop the run game, and then force Hurts to read the defense and fit the ball in tight windows.
Yeah, but Hugh, here's the problem. If you're dedicating a lot of resources to stopping the run, it's not going to be tight windows. No. Because Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are going to be open because you can't cover them one-on-one.
They run too good of routes.
I would just go very heavy up front. That's what I would do. I wouldn't stack the box with my... Anyhow, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Okay. So Hugo, what you're saying is play your heavy defensive linemen, but don't don't bring an extra safety up.
Exactly.
Okay, I got you.
Right.
That makes sense. I got you.
I wouldn't have a problem trying that. In fact, maybe Jordan Riley gets a little bit more heat this week.
Exactly. You know, I wouldn't mind seeing a 5-man front with 4 defensive linemen, Kayvon, and then Azeez Ojulari as a situational pass rusher in certain situations.
Yep.
The other thing I would say is on offense. I think this is a Saquon Barkley in the passing game, a Wan'Dale Robinson game, and a Darren Waller game to exploit their safeties and linebackers.
I agree.
And mix in some rushing to the edges where I think they're vulnerable. Plus, with the lack of linebacker foot speed, you can get to the edges, and then every once in a while, try to match up Jalen Hyatt on James Bradbury. You're going to get a penalty or you're going to get an explosive. That's the strategy.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I don't have a problem with that at all.
Okay. Well, there's the path to victory. You can tell the coaches.
Thank you, Hugo. Good stuff, man. Happy holidays. Appreciate the calls.
In the
always.
past, Bradbury's done a little more work on Hodgins because of their size.
Yeah,
so I don't know how they're going to play it this week.
I mean, remember, Hodgins and Hyatt, they play the same position in this offense. So I don't know if he's going to be over there. And again, it depends if Slay's going to play too, obviously. Keely Ringo played pretty well last week as a rookie, getting in there, getting some major snaps. Another big thing that's different between Philly this year and last year, Paul. Last year, Philly was one of the best teams in terms of taking the ball away. They were +8. This year, they're -6.
Yep.
So that is a 14 turnover difference. You want to know what'll turn games around? No pun intended. That.
Yes, it will.
That's a 14 plus-minus difference in terms of takeaways turnover ratio for them. So that is also, I think, a pretty big deal. All right, back to the phones. Let's go to Scott, New Mexico. Scott.
Hi, guys. How you doing today?
Hi.
I have to disagree with you, Paul, but I'll put an asterisk next to it. I do believe in the Bill Parcells. You are what your record indicates you are. But the asterisk is that it really doesn't matter because when it comes to the end, which is the Super Bowl, it's the best team at that time playing the best football that wins. In 2007, the Giants weren't the best team in football, but what happened? They win the Super Bowl against a team that supposedly was unbeatable. And it happens all the time. And I hope you guys weren't insinuating that either Philadelphia or Dallas or San Francisco were bad football teams because they've lost. I think San Francisco lost to Arizona, if I recall.
Who said that, Scott?
I just want to make sure. Philadelphia is a good football team, so is Dallas, even though they got demolished.
Of course they are, yeah.
Right.
Everyone loses games sometimes. That's the way it goes.
They have some warts, though, is the point.
Yeah.
They have some warts,
agree.
and they're not the San Francisco 49ers who have the fewest warts of anyone in the conference.
Right now have darn near no warts to the 49ers. They're really playing great football.
Well, they did lose to Minnesota, I think, also. I believe San Francisco did.
Yeah, that was also when 3 of their best players were out hurt.
Yeah,
so.
Right.
Let's not forget.
I got it.
The Dolphins are the only team to run the table. Let's not forget that, okay? All hail to Greasy, Zonka, and the rest of them.
Right. My question, though, or my main question is this, and it goes to your point, John, that you make all the time, production per dollar. I look at this team, and I was wondering, as you go into next year and you're trying to put a team together, because you're not going to have, obviously, the same team that you have now.
Yep.
Who are the players that you think, and this is a question for both of you, that really have earned that production per dollar? Because I can't think of more than 6 on the entire roster that I would say, hey, they've played the whole season. I'm discounting Daniel Jones only because he hasn't played.
Are you including guys on rookie contracts or just guys that?
Yeah, rookie contracts as well. And in other words, if you had to pick out your production, who's earned it, and how do you take that and formalize it for next year and say, here's my core players?
Good question.
And how do I? Because we know there are needs on both sides. Again, I reiterate the point I always make: you have to stop the run, and you have to run the football. The Giants have done neither, and so from my perspective, that's a big thing going into next year. But that being said, who are your players that you have to have as your core? I'm going to assume it's Dexter Lawrence.
Who are my production per dollar all-stars? That's basically what your question is.
Right, exactly.
I mean, Saquon, I think, has played up to what his contract is. I think he's obviously met the threshold of what he's getting paid and what he's given the team. Jalen Hyatt for rookie contract's been fine. Darius Slayton.
Jalen, can I stop you for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Has Jalen Hyatt earned what I would call giving you the production per dollar that you like to talk about?
I mean, he's basically making no.
Enough
I mean, he's basically making no money.
He's a third
round pick. So yes,
right.
but only because his salary is very small.
I mean,
okay.
I'm just like looking at this, and in 2 seconds, I got at least double what you have. Your number is way too low.
Andrew Thomas for sure.
Andrew Thomas, yes.
John Michael Schmitz for again rookie, and that's why I asked you about rookie contracts, because almost everyone that plays on a rookie contract is going to meet a production per dollar threshold. So that makes it a little bit unfair. Xavier McKinney would be on that list. Micah McFadden's on that list, obviously. Kayvon Thibodeau's on that list. Dexter Lawrence is on that list.
Slayton took a pay cut, and for what he's done.
Well, no, remember,
he
signed a new 2-year deal this offseason. Last year was the pay cut. This year he signed a 2-year deal.
I forgot.
Right? Didn't he?
I forgot.
Am I wrong about that?
I don't remember that.
I believe that's correct.
I could be.
But the way it's structured, the first year of that deal's not very big. So I think he's been fine.
I have no problem with him in the receiver.
No, I don't either. But that was last year. Remember, he took the trim to squeeze on the roster, and that was on a 1-year deal, and then he signed a new 2-year deal this year.
But I didn't think it was for a whole lot of money.
No, it's not. It's not for a whole lot of money. So that's why I have no problem with Slayton being on the list.
Okay,
that's fine.
Bobby Okereke.
Oh, obviously Bobby Okereke for sure. Absolutely. Thank you. A'Shawn Robinson.
Micah McFadden.
Yep. A'Shawn Robinson has met that
obviously
threshold.
Thibodeau.
I think Nacho's been fine for what they've asked him to do and what
we're
they're
already
paying
well
him.
over a dozen.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate the call.
We're well over a dozen.
Pinnock, Pinnock's not making any money. He's been fine for what they're paying him.
Yeah.
So yeah,
absolutely.
Now, does that mean all those players are cornerstone players? No, that's not what that means. There are two separate questions.
Correct.
A cornerstone player is different than a guy that's playing up to what his contract value is.
Right.
Those are two separate questions. So I'll kind of leave it there. And we can do more team building stuff, Scott, as we get closer
There's
to the
a lot of months to do
that. 100%. All right. So I'm reading this correctly, Pearson. This is Coach in Marvin, and he wants to talk about Delaware. Is that correct? I'm just kidding. It is Coach Marvin in Delaware. Coach, what's going on, pal?
Hey, happy holidays, guys.
Hey, you too, Coach. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I was just listening to you guys talking about a couple of things here, talking about how to approach this game.
Yeah.
And it's there's a little bit of both of what you and Paul are saying. Going into a game like this, my record is who I am. And I'm going to go into the game, and I'm going to play relax. And Paul was saying, do you go out and do some things that you haven't done? I have those plays in my pocket. Plays, I'm going to open up the book a little bit, some plays we haven't called, and just take a shot. I'm not going to go crazy all through the game. I'm still going to play a competitive game, but I'm going to have some shots that I'm going to throw at them that no one has really seen us run. A formation no one has really seen us run.
I'll buy that. That's fine, Coach. I'm with you on that.
And one of the things I do want to come out, going back to what you said, John, that they give you time. So I'm also not going to do anything crazy that I'm going to put my players in jeopardy of getting hurt on something crazy I'm trying to do. I still got to think safety as I'm coaching against a team that we're playing that'll be like the Eagles, who are pissed off and going to come out aggressive. So I know they're going to try to take their pain out on us.
Yes.
Yes. This is something they've done many times.
And Coach, and just in terms of talking about the pressure thing, I just think Andrew Thomas will be fine. And look, Josh Sweat might get him a couple times because Josh Sweat's awesome. He's a great player. But you worry about what's going on at right tackle because Tyree Phillips is not the most athletic guy out there. And Hassan Reddick is one of the most athletic pass rushers you can have off the edge. And then, look, we saw what power rushers did to the Giants' interior last week against the Saints.
We sure did.
And the Eagles between Fletcher Cox. I didn't even mention Jordan Davis, by the way. He's more of a run stuffer than a pass rusher.
You mentioned him
I didn't think I did.
You did. You did.
I thought I left him out of the pass rush discussion. And then you have Jalen Carter. Those are three very powerful men that the Giants' interior rushers. Now, they don't run as many stunts and twists as the Saints do, so that'll be a little bit easier. But the Giants will have to do better in their one-on-one matchups this week for sure.
You know, Coach, this is one of those times where you've heard me many times over the years talk about how, the styles of offensive lines and those matchups become very significant. John Michael Schmitz is a bit of an undersized center.
Yeah, he is.
Justin Pugh is a very undersized guard.
Yes, he is.
So when you get larger, more physical, more powerful interior defensive linemen on the other side of the ball, it's going to cause a matchup problem. That's just the nature of the beast. That's one of the reasons why when we talked last year when the Giants were going into the playoffs and we were like, there were a lot of reasons why we liked the matchup against the Vikings. But one of the reasons that we liked was along that front on the line of scrimmage. I never thought that the Vikings defensive line could match up and dominate the Giants offensive line.
And throw the other side, Dexter Lawrence against their undersized center and Bradbury.
Exactly.
It was the opposite effect.
On the flip. The Giants were going to win both sides of the line, which was the foundation of why I felt so confident in that playoff game.
Right. And I think that goes back to what John's saying over the years that I've been listening. Matchup. We that Viking team, we matched up well.
It's always styles make fights, Coach. Always.
Yes, they do.
You know that.
And it's Coach, as you well know, I'm not telling anything you don't know, the NFL is a week-to-week league. That's why it's really stupid to overreact to any one win or loss. Like 2 weeks ago, Dallas beats Philly. Everyone's saying that, Dak MVP put him in the Super Bowl. Then they go to Buffalo and bad weather, lose to the Bills. The Lions are better than Dallas. Even though the Lions had lost 3 straight before they won last week. People flip back and forth week to week in the league. It's ridiculous. You have to look at the body of work because anything can happen with a bad matchup. Anyway, that's me on my soapbox. Coach, go ahead.
It's okay.
No, you're exactly right. And that was also part of the Bill Parcells said you are who you are, what your record said. Because it's a week-by-week league. That's where I was going to go, John, about the week-by the records are who you are. Because as you're going through the season, you still each week is it's like you got 17 games, but really you got 17 won games.
Yeah, 100%. You use 17 seasons. You're 100% right.
You do. But I think go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So at the end of the season, I look at the record. I'm sorry, Paul, but at the end of the season, my record is who I was. I can't change it. I can't be like, well, we should have won this game, but then there's 2 other ones I shouldn't have won. So I understand what he was really trying to say, and it's based on interpretation. People can take it the way they want. I'm not going to say I'm right, but the way I look at it, when that season ended, my record is 6-10. That's who I was. I was 6-10.
Can I alter the Bill Parcells phrase a little bit?
Sure. Why not?
To fit my philosophy?
Okay.
Yeah.
Your point differential is what you say you are. Because that is a much more telling indicator of your overall quality of your team than your actual record, in my opinion.
That's an interesting thought, John. Yeah. I never really considered that. But I guess what I would say to you, Coach Marvin, just to counter and why I'm sorry to disagree with Coach Parcells, is that you can look at a group of 5 10-win teams, and you could tell there is a difference in the quality of those 5 10-win teams.
You can.
And for example, Coach, and this is why I said what I said, and we talked about how the Eagles have some of these blemishes, but they're still a good team at 10-4. I didn't even look at this before right now. Do you know what the Eagles? I will let both Coach. I'll let you and Paul both guess. What do you think the Eagles' point differential is this year?
Plus
this
40?
Year, I'm gonna say plus 21.
And I will give you an idea. Dallas is plus 167. Just to give you an idea, the Niners are plus 190, the Ravens are plus 160, the Dolphins are plus 147.
Yeah, I just said plus 40,
So
but
you
I
say
think it's a lot less than those other teams.
Coach, what do you
Right.
Coach, what do you at plus 20 you said?
21.
They're
said
plus
21.
18
It's that low.
at
Yeah.
10 and
That's
4.
close.
Just to give you an example, the Vikings are plus 21, okay?
Uh-huh.
The Saints are plus 42 and the Rams are plus 17.
Well,
Wow.
one of the things. Go ahead, Coach.
Finish up, Coach.
Oh,
No,
real
finish
quick,
up, Coach.
But what you said, or what you guys were saying earlier, you and Paul were saying, they're not the same team they were
They're
last
not.
year. They got two different coordinators, so there's two different voices. They're not running the ball the way they usually run. And I talked to Yasin Carmichael quite a bit. He's an Eagles fan. Obviously, his uncle played. And he always he would talk to me when they were like 10-1 about what's going on. And the first thing I said, Wizard of Oz. And when I say Wizard of Oz, I think of the Wicked Witch telling the Scarecrow, do you want to play with fire? And I told them they were playing with fire all year long. And
Yeah, they were.
eventually,
No, you're right.
they're going to get burned because they're not running the ball. That's what's wrong with them. They're not running as they did last year. And I don't know if it's that they can't. I think the play calling is they calling for more passes than they normally do.
Their run rate is actually still pretty high, Coach Marvin. It is like top 10 in the league, but their running effectiveness has not been nearly what it was.
Coach, would it
Right.
surprise you to know, and it did when I first looked at the number earlier in the week, that the Philadelphia Eagles defensively have given up 3 more points than the Giants have this season? How about that?
That surprised me. That number surprised me. I did not know that.
Okay,
But
so
I mean,
I get it. That defensive
Thank you,
front
Coach. We
is
gotta
still
run.
pretty fierce.
Happy holidays.
But-
Merry Christmas, Coach. Appreciate it.
Yes, for sure. But overall, I mean, this is why we could talk about how stats can be made to tell any story that you want to tell. You know, because that's a 10-4 team with a difficult defensive front to deal with, and yet they've given up 3 more points than the Giants have this season. A Giants team that has had some really nice defensive games against weaker teams and then been hammered by the better teams.
Yeah. And look, that's why we also, we talk about the NFL being a week-to-week league. That's why one year success does not necessarily mean the next year's success, even if a lot of things don't change. For the Eagles, a lot of things did change. So at least there are reasons to explain this. But for teams where things don't change, sometimes things just change year to year. It's different groups of guys, and things just go differently.
We just saw on NFL Network they flashed that Landon Dickerson, the starting left guard, is having thumb surgery, but he's not going to injured reserve. I don't know if they're considering that he could possibly play.
I don't know. He got rolled up on in that game last week, actually. I was afraid he had an ankle or a knee injury given what he went through in his last year for Alabama. But thumb, I guess. Okay, sure, thumb.
Well, left guard, interior of the offensive line, Dexter Lawrence, just letting you know.
201-939-4513. Go check out Giants TV, the Giants official streaming app. Giants TV brings original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. 201-939-4513. Let's go to Cliff in New York. Cliff, what's up?
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking the call.
Yes.
I wanted to talk about the offensive line, but first I would just say that the talk about the Parcells quote, I think, it needs to be in the context of building how it related to building a winning attitude and building a winning culture, I think was the point. And I don't have no idea what prompted the original comment, and if it was maybe only once, and it reminds me of Lombardi supposedly said winning is everything, and that's not what he said. It's
Right.
so those kind of things. Those kind of things are out of context.
Oh,
anyway,
I was there when Bill said it, and he.
Of course you were.
I was, and he said it multiple times. And basically, what it came down to was you had a bunch of writers around the table who were talking about a particular opponent, and they were thinking that the opponent was going to be soft. Okay.
Right.
And they're not as good as their record is, and blah blah. And Bill would just go, "You are what your record says you are."
Now, did he ever go the other way on that? Probably not.
To be honest, I never heard him say it in the other direction.
Yeah, of course he didn't, because he's trying to make sure his team takes.
Remember, Bill was a psychological
That's
genius.
Exactly what it is.
Okay,
all right.
But nonetheless, I still disagree with him.
Well, I just remember Carl Banks saying once when they asked him about something that Parcells said, and Carl said that the coach is coaching.
Exactly.
You know?
Right.
Great
You're
line.
right, Cliff. Great point.
That's another great line. I love that. The coach is coaching. That's Banksy for you.
That's what he's always doing, you know.
Yep.
So anyway, I saw the huddle with Sean on Monday, and the two shows this week before this one here, and I'm thinking that the improved offensive line, the answers might already be here more than we might normally think, just because the performance has total performance hasn't been, you know, what we're hoping for. I'm thinking about Daboll and Shane coming over from Buffalo. They brought Bobby Johnson with them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously the success that they had in building up that team there probably had something to do with the offensive line getting a lot better. I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I know that when at one of Shane's first press conferences, when they were pressing him to give some kind of an impression about the players that he was inheriting from Gettleman, and I think Dexter Lawrence, he was asked by name, and he said, "Oh, very good player." But I think he volunteered, if I remember right, he volunteered Matt Parrott. And that really struck me. I said, "Oh, I think Matt Parrott was on their draft board in Buffalo, and if they had such a good track record up there, I'm going to hang on to that for a while until this tackle has a chance to get out there healthy and see if
Cliff, hold on. They drafted Evan Neal here in the top 10. Matt Parrott's not playing over Evan Neal, and Matt Parrott's not a guard, so you can take, and he's a free agent after the year, so I think you can roll that up and toss that away.
All right, but
not Matt Parrott. Your idea is my point. I like Matt.
If you want to discuss the possibility of guys who are lurking in the shadows here, you have to talk about Azudu and McKeithen, who have been injury plagued. Now, John has very succinctly said to me, you can't keep talking about hope with young injured players, and I absolutely understand that. Because
my point is that you can't count on them.
You know,
right? You can't just say, "All right, well, next year Azudu and McKeithen my two starting guards." I can't say that. I can't.
That would be awesome if they can do it.
Sure,
but we don't know.
Right.
We just don't know.
Well, but whoever comes in from the draft or free agency especially in the interior, is going to have to compete with the guys that are already here if they're healthy, who know the system and know what the coaches are looking for, and they're going to have to beat them out. And I thought that one of the very first things Shane did was hire Feliciano to be the center, because that was mostly because they didn't know if Nick Gates was going to be healthy, I think. And they brought in Glowinski. And Glowinski was pricey, and that was all part of the amazing thing that Shane did with no money and no cap, and probably Kevin Abrams not getting as much credit as he deserved. But anyway, they brought in those two guys, and then when they drafted McKeithen and Izudu, it was like, okay, these are the veterans that they want these young guys to beat out. So I don't know that I can't hope that they're going to do it, but they're still here. And maybe the most encouraging thing was what I heard about Schmitz and the way the game went down on Sunday, which, by the way, that was the first time all year I was angry. You know, I mean, I just was really disappointed. But when I heard the explanations, it was a lot easier to take. It seemed like what happened in the middle was something that was totally correctable as far as Schmitz was concerned. And
well, he had a bad day, and he's going to be probably on the all-rookie team. Schmitz has had a good season.
He's been fine.
I thought so.
Yeah, I wouldn't say good. I think he's been fine.
All right.
But the trick is,
I don't think he's a plus starter at center.
Well, with you two guys together,
I think he's a little higher than you might, but that's okay.
That's fine.
We're not that far off.
And again, I think he is a good future. I just think center's a really tough position for rookies.
It is.
I think he needs to get stronger. I think
there's no question he does.
I know he's very smart. He can handle the position mentally, which is great. I have no problem penciling him as my starter next year. I feel good about that. I think he's going to be a good player. But I think there are ways to go for him.
Yeah,
Sure.
he has a lot of ups.
Yeah, sure,
I'm saying
absolutely.
grading him on a rookie curve to come in and start right away. Remember, I said we didn't even know if he'd start week 1.
As a rookie, he's been
done
fine.
a good job.
As a rookie, he's been fine. But
Yeah.
would I put him in the top half of centers in the league? I wouldn't do that.
He's got ups to get there.
No, sure he does, and I wouldn't disagree with that at all. I'm just saying he's not there right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Is
Fair enough.
is his size the same as the guy in Baltimore that we were talking about a lot in the draft a couple of years ago?
Linderbaum. He's actually a little bit bigger than Linderbaum is.
Yeah.
But
And he's
Linderbaum was
doing
also
pretty
a
good,
better
right?
Yeah, but Linderbaum was a better player than he was in college.
Okay, so he panned out better than you thought.
Well, no, I'm saying at the time they were drafted, Linderbaum was a better college player than Schmitz was.
He had higher rankings coming into the draft.
Well, and his tape was better. He was just a better player, but
Well,
he wasn't as
here's
big.
what I really want to get at with both of you guys there at the same time. I got from you, John, somewhere a while ago, 3 to 5 years for an offensive lineman, and then I got from Paul on another show, 3 years for everybody.
3 to 5. I mean, I don't know if you're waiting 5 years for anybody at this point in time, but I think 3 to 4, 3 years. I think by year 3, you would like to see significant progress from an offensive lineman to believe that they're going to be able to be a good player.
Yeah, the general rule about 3 years has been around this league forever.
Thank you, Cliff.
Is that if you draft a guy and he comes into your system as a rookie, he's got to take that legitimate step by year 3 to show you what he is.
And I think there are some positions where
that's the general rule.
Correct.
The
I
general
agree.
rule.
I think there are positions where, like receivers, you know, if you're not doing anything by year 2 as a receiver,
You start shaking your head a little bit.
Yeah, I wonder about you.
I
right?
understand.
Even as an edge rusher, I think you're gonna first couple years you're gonna see at least a spark and flashes where you're like, okay, we got it. If the guy gives you nothing in the first 2 years, I'm not gonna say I'm out, but I'm not feeling great.
Well,
I'm not feeling great about it. So it all depends on the position, but
it can.
Offensive linemen, interior defensive linemen, corners. Those are some of the positions where I think sometimes it does take a little time for guys to get used to the NFL.
The worst part about it is...
And linebackers, too. Linebackers take a couple years, and so do tight ends.
Yeah, the game doesn't allow you to have a lot of that patience,
Makes
though,
it hard.
because the way rosters get ripped up.
Yeah, that makes it very difficult. 201-939-4513. Charlie in Portland, Maine. Merry Christmas, Charlie. How are you?
Hey, Merry Christmas to you. Happy holidays, Paul.
Are you having
Charlie.
a great week, Charlie? How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Hey, let me. I think the Eagles are better than they were last year.
Well, you're
Let
out of
me
your
tell
mind.
you why.
You're crazy.
No. They have the same record. Is that what you guys are saying? As they did last year at this time?
I don't know what their record was.
I don't know
at
what
this
their
time
record
last year.
was on this date, but Charlie, this is not the same team.
Well,
and the
let
rest
me
of the
tell you
NFL
why.
would disagree with you.
Well, let me tell you why.
Sure. Tell us why, Charlie.
Okay. What was their schedule last year? It was pretty cupcake, wasn't it? Just like ours?
It was.
How about this year?
It was similar.
How about this year? Is it about 100 times better than it was last year?
Yeah, but Charlie, their record is about Their schedule is about the same difficulty as the Dallas Cowboys, and the Dallas Cowboys have the same record, but are plus 167 in point differential, and the Eagles are plus 18.
Yeah.
They only had one loss at this point last year.
There you go. Thank you, Pearson. They only had
okay.
3 fewer losses too.
All right.
Good one, Pearson.
All
Thank you.
right. Well, that's what I wanted to know.
Okay.
But
Yes.
If we get
Flush.
to the end, no. But I'm just saying the schedule. Who they've lost to? They've lost to Dallas, and they beat Dallas. They lost to San Francisco.
Yep.
You know, what? We're talking Super Bowl, right?
Oh, yep. Fair.
And they lost to Seattle in Seattle, which is a hard place to play.
Sure.
And they lost by 3 points. Okay. I don't know what was the other team.
The
they
Jets.
Lost to? I don't
The
know.
Jets. The Jets.
Jets. Oh, that was pathetic. Okay, one game. You know.
No, Charlie,
pathetic.
look, you're right, Charlie. No one's saying the Eagles are a bad team by any means. To your point, their last 3 losses were probably all the teams that, in my opinion, are going to be in the playoffs. So, no, they aren't a bad team by any means. We just don't think they're as dominant as they were last season.
Well, we're going to see how dominant they are against us. all
Yeah,
right?
absolutely,
They
for
were-
sure.
They were pretty dominant against us last year.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
If they're not dominant against us this year, then I'll say to you, yes, they're not as good as they were last
Charlie,
year.
they're one of the 3 best teams in the conference. That's still not up for debate because the conference is not that good.
Can I say 1 of 4?
All right, you want to go 1 of 4?
Oh, the Lions.
Okay.
The Lions are also 10-4. I
Yeah.
feel like they should be in the
All right,
conversation.
all right. Then say 1 of 4 if you like. But the point is, the conference is not very good, so it's all relative. Are they going to be in the playoffs? Yes. Could they go a couple of rounds far? Yes, they could. But that doesn't mean they're anything like they were last year when both them and San Francisco both believed 100% they were going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and as it turned out to, Charlie, because of what happened to the Patriots and the Jets this year, it made the NFC East schedule not quite as tough as we thought before the season started, because those two games, which we thought were going to be, the Patriots are always at least competitive and a solid football team. They've turned out to be terrible this year. And the Jets losing Aaron Rodgers, that obviously changed the equation for them. So the NFC East schedules didn't turn out to be quite as tough as we thought before the year. Still not easy, because you got Dallas, you got Philadelphia. You had to play the NFC. This year was the NFC West, which has been very good. The Rams, the Seahawks, and the Niners have been excellent. So probably the best team in the NFC. Actually, the best division in the NFC is probably the NFC West this year. To be totally honest with you.
Yeah.
So
the Giants are down, and I think a lot of people thought Washington would be more competitive.
Yeah, they're not.
And the thing is, I know, Paul, you talked about, look, Dex is hurt,
Yeah.
He only played 48% of the snaps, 43.
Right. Yep.
Why are they playing this guy when he's got a bad hammy? He's not the same guy. He had 2 tackles last week.
He was very good 2 weeks ago, Charlie. That's the difference.
Yeah.
He was pretty darn good 2 weeks ago.
He played very well against the Packers.
But he's getting worse, and I just don't think they shouldn't play this guy. And the thing is, Paul, what you're saying is you were saying, like, wow, Dex is going up against if that guy Dickinson isn't there. No, he's injured. He's not the same guy, Paul.
But we'll see. We'll see, Charlie. You might be right. We'll have to see how it looks on game day. You might be right.
They may bench him. They may limit his snap count, or maybe he heals in the next couple days and he goes full. Who knows?
Now, my guess is that last week, was he limited in practice on Wednesday?
Yes.
I believe he was,
yes,
right?
He was.
Maybe in order to have him fresher on game day this week, they're going to take some of the practice load off
of him. They could do that, too.
And not let him practice all week, and then they'll have him
Or they could give him some of Charlie's magical Anika cream.
Oh, yeah. Come on. How did you not bring that up yet, Charlie? That's a great point.
Hey, I would give him some. They should have. But, Paul, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
I remember you saying all last week, we're going to be playing ahead of,
the Saints. I thought they would be playing from ahead.
You kept saying that.
I felt very strongly about it.
Yeah, well, how?
Well, Charlie, it's funny. I asked Paul that same very question yesterday off the air when he came in. We had the conversation about it. And I was also a little befuddled because the Giants haven't scored enough points this year to really play from far ahead. So I said, Paul, how did you think that was going to work? And he actually gave me an answer. Not actually, but he gave me an answer that made sense. And I thought he thought they were going to continue to get takeaways. He thought they were going to get a couple defensive scores and score that way. So
at the very least, shorten the field a couple times.
Right.
I really did.
Yeah.
The way the team has been playing defensively, I felt very strongly about their ability to clamp down against the Saints offense that had been struggling. Yeah, I thought that was very realistic.
Yep.
They were up 3-0, so.
Oh, Pearson. Okay, thank you so much for that support.
Takeaways, though, are like crapshoot.
Understood. But you had 3 weeks of a body of evidence where the Giants' D had played extremely well and the Saints' offense was not.
Charlie, we got to run, pal. Merry Christmas, my friend. Good talking to you, my friend.
Enjoy.
Yep.
Take it easy. All right, let's go to our final caller of the show and say hello to Guy in Pennsylvania. Guy, this must be a tough week for you as a Giants fan, I would imagine.
Oh,
yeah,
boy.
Yeah, it's been a tough week, but my grandson's on a great basketball team this year, so I'm kind of enjoying that.
That's nice.
But anyhow,
Merry Christmas.
The Sixers, Guy? No? I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, Guy. We got you.
Yeah. Okay, so we're driving home from the game, and we're listening to the Eagle game, and we listen through halftime and say, well, it looks like the Eagles are going to get right here. And then the next day I see they lost that game, so I pulled it up on a quick review of the game, and that last drive, the job Metcalf did was kind of amazing. I don't know if it was more Metcalf than anything that the Eagles didn't do. I don't know if you had a chance to see that last 1 and a minute drive.
I did not like playing single high safety there without having a safety over the top on him. To me, in that situation, you have to be in cover 2 or some type of cloud coverage where you have safeties over the top. The Seahawks only had one timeout. What was it, like a minute 15, minute 20 seconds, something like that, to go the length of the field. And not just, and get a touchdown, not just a field goal. They were down 4 points, remember, so they needed a touchdown.
Yep.
You cannot allow 2 chunk plays of 30-plus yards. I think both the A.J. Brown and Smith and Jigba plays, the DK Metcalf and Smith and Jigba plays, plus 30 yards.
Can't happen.
You can't allow that guy in that situation.
Well, that's right, but it seemed like he made a couple catches where he was actually blanketed, and he still made the catch.
The one that he pinned against his leg was ridiculous.
Yeah, the long catch by Metcalf was a very tough one. The one to Smith and Jigba was way too easy. There was not a safety over the top on that.
Right.
I don't know if there's anyone I'd rather not defend than him in that situation.
Exactly, right? 100%.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you, fellas.
Thank you,
Have a
guys.
great day.
And, and it's funny with Matt Patricia taking over as defensive coordinator. We didn't really talk about that much. And I'll talk about this with Xias tomorrow. I'll double-check my numbers. But, I figured given his background, they'd lean more into blitzing and lean more into man-to-man defense. Nope. They actually played zone more and blitz less, which I was shocked given what Patricia's history is being from New England. So I'm curious to see with another week there if they, especially after seeing how the Saints did against the Giants, playing a lot of man and bringing a lot of pressure, if the Eagles decide to take a page out of their book. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, whatever Patricia may have wanted to do, again, I don't know when he knew he was going to wind up getting this spot because they promoted him. When Slay went down, that changed everything.
No, that's a good point, too. So. No, you're right. 100%. All right, so we will keep an eye on Darius Slay this week to see whether or not he's going to play. Stay tuned to that. To Big Blue Kickoff Live all week. Again, it's presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants. Tomorrow, it'll be Casillas and I. Friday, Dottino and Meadow, as we continue to get you ready for Giants and Eagles. And no surprises, there will be no show on Christmas Day. Pearson came in yesterday. He said, guys, we need to do this. The fans want it. I want to get in here. I want to do the show. But I had to calm him down and say, Pearson, it's more important to spend time with your family. So we're not going to do a show on Christmas Day.
I want to give him highlights of the last 2 Bruins-Rangers hockey games, but he doesn't want those either.
Yeah, Pearson can take us off the air, so I would lean low on that. Especially given how the Celtics have handled the Knicks this year, I would probably lean low on that.
I know.
For Paul Dottino, I'm John Schmeelk. Thanks for listening to Big Blue Kickoff Live. We'll see you tomorrow.